All right, live here now into the live feed. Send out the link for everyone who wants to come in. Carolina Panthers 2022 schedule is finally released. We've known the schedule, we just haven't known the dates. The dates now have been finally given to us here on Thursday, May 12th at 8 o'clock. The official schedule finally came out for the Carolina Panthers, and we'll get into that here in just a moment on the show. Just going to send out the link and then let people get in here, and then we will break down the first half of the season, second half of the season, and then talk about potentially the record win-loss for the Panthers here in 2022. So just let people get in here first, and then I will get to the show once I get this link out there on Twitter. All right, live now. And we'll get going. Let's see, let's get the chat up. All right, got the chat up, and we will be ready to go here shortly. Let's see. All right, slow arriving crowd, not a big deal. All right, let's do it. All right, the 2022 Carolina Panthers schedule has officially been released by the NFL. We've known the dates, we've known the teams, and we've known the games for a while, but now we know the dates here in Carolina. So let's check out what's going on here in the 2022 season right now on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to everyone watching the show live now here on YouTube. That's why it's important to subscribe to the show on YouTube so you can be there for all the special live edition shows that we do, like we did with the draft, and now like we're doing for the NFL schedule release. And we'll put that in quotes because, I mean, we've known who they're going to play for a while, the Carolina Panthers. Now we just know when the dates are going to be. For me, the most important dates are when's the Thursday night game and when is the bye week? What 2 Sundays do I get to hang out and chill? I did not have to talk about this team. Yes, 17-0. Get in here. Send in whatever your thoughts are. We'll go over the front half of the schedule, second half of the schedule. Then at the end of it, kind of talk about the win-loss. I mean, I've pretty much already told y'all what I think likely will be the team's record, but also it depends sometimes on when these games fall and who's going to be available, who's not going to be available, all things that, well, we don't really know right now on May 12th as we look at the schedule. First off, the Panthers social media team killed it once again. They were doing the throwback photos of all the players this past week. Had to have known that was going to be part of the schedule release, and the video was dope, man. 90s theme. I loved it. So shout out to those guys and what they do. Preseason, we already know. Playing at the Washington football team, Ron Rivera, week 1 of the preseason, week 2 at New England, and week 3 home against the Buffalo Bills. Plenty of Bills fans, obviously, here in the Charlotte area, so I'd imagine that's going to be overrun by Bills Mafia, but it's a preseason game, so whatever. Week 1, Carolina Panthers at home against the Cleveland Browns, 1 o'clock on CBS. A ton of 1 o'clock games. Once again for Carolina, like the 3rd year in a row that we have a bunch of 1 o'clock games here on the schedule for the Panthers. And the Cleveland game is interesting when you think about earlier this offseason when the Carolina Panthers were all in on Deshaun Watson and the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. And Cleveland was one of those teams that we thought were out of it until they gave Deshaun all that money guaranteed. And now he's a Brown, but we don't know when he's going to play and if he's going to play week 1 against the Carolina Panthers. It would kind of be draining for a lot of people who wanted Deshaun to be here to watch him play in a new uniform. And that first game be, of course, against the Carolina Panthers, a team that was thirsty, the thirstiest by far, over a year with David Tepper trying to find his franchise quarterback, which still is a question here locally, and Baker Mayfield as well, someone who potentially could be a Panther if they do decide to add another veteran quarterback onto the roster. What is his future? Could he be starting week 1 here in Carolina against his former team? Well, maybe soon to be former team, the Cleveland Browns. No idea who's going to start for either the Browns or the Panthers during that week 1 matchup, which should be interesting to see what happens there week 1. Week 2, on the road against the New York Giants, a game where Sam Darnold last year was benched, and it was an utter embarrassment offensively. hopefully things will turn around as the Giants are going to be in their second game with new head coach Brian Daboll and new general manager Joe Shane. Daniel Jones, the Charlotte Latin graduate and Duke alum, is going to be the quarterback once again there in New York, and it's do or die time for the Charlotte native if he wants to be the long-term answer there in New York. After 3 seasons, doesn't really look like he's going to get to be there past this upcoming season, but we will see. I would look at that as a game as the Carolina Panthers, if they want to be in contention for a wild card berth, have to win against the Giants on the road at MetLife there in week 2. Come back home week 3 against the New Orleans Saints. Early game, like last year, had the Saints week 2. That was a game that we thought would be a measuring stick as far as how good this team could be. The Saints coaching staff dealt with COVID. Obviously, Michael Thomas and a plethora of key Saints players didn't play. Didn't matter. They would have got spanked by the Panthers that Sunday afternoon, no matter what. It will be another early NFC South showdown with the New Orleans Saints there in week 3. Jameis Winston getting yet another opportunity to prove that he's a starting quarterback for New Orleans. I thought last year, had he stayed healthy, not had a knee injury, that maybe New Orleans is one of those teams in the playoffs. Last year, new head coach Dennis Allen there, as Sean Payton has retired for now. And I did see the reports from Michael McCartney about the Panthers apparently monitoring the situation for Sean Payton and wanting to wait him out, to let him look at his TV options, whether that be with Fox or Amazon. I don't know what he's going to do here this offseason or this upcoming season as far as TV goes with Sean Payton, the former Saints coach. But that's apparently something that's come out in the news that the Panthers are looking to see, hey, maybe he could be our head coach in the future. Moving on to week 4, another home game. A ton of home games early on in the season. Week 1, week 3, week 4 against the Cardinals, which is important to note. That will be the time where Nuke Hopkins, who is facing a 6-game suspension for violating the league's drug policy, he will not be in that game. Kyler Murray, who's sent out a letter via his agent earlier this season telling the Cardinals all the reasons why they should pay him. Okay, if you're the guy, let's see it. That's one of those games on the road against the Panthers team that beat up on the Cardinals last year. And the Panthers have honestly, they've had the Cardinals number. Dante Jackson seems to play his best games against the Arizona Cardinals. This is an early season game against a team out there in the NFC West against the 49ers, like the Super Bowl champion Rams, where they're going to be right there in the thick of the playoff race. And the Panthers want to be a team that wants to be in the wild card. Arizona at home, like week 2 on the road against what's supposedly going to be a bad Giants team once again. That's the kind of game that you have to be able to hold serve and win if you want to be able to win out on those tiebreakers later on. Because last year when we were having the conversations later on in the season, when Cam had come back and the team was 500 before, of course, they lost 7 straight games in the season, the looking at it was they just didn't have the tiebreakers within the conference. The conference record was terrible. That's the kind of game at home against Arizona that this team must win if they want to be able to have those tiebreakers later on in the season. Now they continue the NFC West stretch with their 4th home game in 5 weeks. So week 1, week 3, week 4, week 5, all at home. And this one will be against the San Francisco 49ers. Another game of intrigue in terms of the quarterback situation. San Francisco right now is going to Trey Lance. They're going to see what he looks like in OTAs, mandatory minicamp. Jimmy Garoppolo, who has been considered someone who the Panthers could still target. He has that shoulder injury, likely not going to be able to throw until July going into training camp, which doesn't make that very appetizing if you're Carolina, and obviously for San Francisco as well, as they're looking to move on to their number 3 overall pick in the 2021 draft at North Dakota State, Trey Lance. That will be Trey Lance's first time against the Carolina Panthers, and we'll see how that goes. It could also maybe be Jimmy Garoppolo versus San Francisco, and that's also one of those games where you look at it and what the stadium will look like last year when Eagles fans came here, when Vikings fans came here. That could be a takeover. So Panther fans, if you have tickets, please, come on. It's 5 weeks into the season. You talk about how much you miss football. Week 5, San Francisco's coming to town. Don't let these people take over the stadium. The team's going to need you. But that is a pretty damn tough start. 4 out of 5 weeks to start off the season, all home games against a Browns team that will have playoff aspirations, a Saints team with playoff aspirations, a Cardinals team that was in the playoffs briefly, got embarrassed in that Monday night game against the Super Bowl champion, Rams. And in week 5 at home against 49ers who play for an NFC championship. And in week 6, as it continues with more playoff teams and the NFC West, They're on the road at SoFi Stadium. Gorgeous, lovely SoFi Stadium there in LA. If you've ever flown in LAX recently, you can see the stadium right there to your right when flying in. They play the Rams week 6 on the road at SoFi, and I've heard that place gets pretty freaking loud. The Rams are going to be, of course, trying to win another Super Bowl, and they're going to have likely a good team. And here's the thing about the NFL, and it's hard. This is what we're not going to do really the exercise of like, oh, when they're going to win this game or they'll lose this game, because there's so much turnover, and the league is meant for you to be in the playoffs one year and be out of the playoffs the next. But just looking at how these teams succeeded and what they've done in free agency so far this offseason, like getting 4 out of 5 at home to start off is key. The road game really is the game that you have to win against the Giants. The Saints, you want to win that divisional game. Arizona, of course, it's a team that the Carolina Panthers have dominated over the last 3 to 4 or 5 seasons. The 49ers will be a tough team, but a game against a young quarterback, likely making only his 5th start in a National Football League. You need to win that. And on the road against the Rams, I would expect, sitting right now, that's probably going to be a loss, but we'll see. Things change. It's the NFL. Who knows? Any given Sunday, yada, yada, yada. Then they come back home. 5 of the first 7 games at home. Week 7, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady retired, decided not to retire. Bruce Arians then retired. And now Todd Bowles, the head coach. Brian Leftwich staying there as the offensive coordinator. The offense will not change, as was reported so far or earlier this week when they're in Tampa. And I'm not surprised by that at all. Tom Brady, how is he, 44 now? Just come on, man. How is this dude still playing? And now he's going to get $37.5 million to be the Fox analyst alongside Kevin Burkhardt for the number 1 team there in Fox. And he's never said a single interesting thing in his career. Like Tom Brady has been boring as hell whenever speaking to the media. And now he's supposed to entertain millions week in and week out. I don't really get why any network would pay someone that kind of money. I've never tuned into a game because someone's there. I don't care. I'm going to watch the game because of the teams. I'm watching Bills and Chiefs for Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, not for Tony Romo and Jim Nantz, not for Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, who I honestly didn't like their commentary team. But I don't choose to watch games because of who's on TV. So it's really stupid that Fox wants to spend that money. But hey, go ahead. Give the greatest living American all the money you want in the world. Carolina's not been competitive at all the last 2 seasons under Matt Rule against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hopefully, finally, maybe they're in week 7 at home, they can give the Bucs some sort of competition in some sort of competitive game, and that will be their second divisional game of the season. Then getting there to week 8 on the road in Atlanta, a house of horrors for the Carolina Panthers. Things have not gone great over the years. Did win in Atlanta last season. Carolina did, so we got that going on. So Falcons week 8. So 5 of the first 8 games all at home for the Carolina Panthers. Again, going back to week 1, at home against the Cleveland Browns. No idea who's going to be a quarterback for Cleveland. Then at New York, the Giants, that is week 2. Home against Saints week 3. Home against the Cardinals, which is a 4:05 game. I should add week 4. And a 4:05. Wow, back-to-back 4:05 games to appease the West Coast teams. That's not common because Seattle plays a lot of those 1 o'clock games with the Panthers. Okay, that's not fair. So we get to accommodate the Cardinals and 49ers in back-to-back weeks of 4:05 games and on the road at the Rams week 6, home at 1 o'clock against the Bucs week 7, and on the road at 1 o'clock against the Falcons week 8. We'll look at the rest of the schedule here on Locked On Panthers in just a moment. But first, let me tell you guys about our friends over at BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number 1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, looking at the second half of the season, they start off week 9 on the road at Paul Brown Stadium against the Cincinnati Bengals, the battle of the 2 queen cities. Cincinnati will always be the fake queen city. They have no connection to an actual queen, so I don't know why they're called the queen city. It's stupid, and that is my rant on how I think Cincinnati and the state of Ohio that says birthplace of aviation, it's all a lie. Charlotte's the queen city. North Carolina's first in flight. Stop lying, Ohio. It's wrong. It's not good. It's unbecoming. Doesn't look good on you. But Joe Burrow does look good in that Bengals uniform, and he was a revelation, has been a revelation for them the last 2 seasons. Had an awesome playoff stretch last year And even going on into the regular season when they beat Kansas City at home in that comeback, and how great Jamar Chase was, I think, 300 yards receiving in that game. They rode all that momentum all the way to the Super Bowl loss at SoFi Stadium against the Los Angeles Rams. But they're playing in a tough division. The Carolina Panthers are going to have to play the AFC North this year, which, damn, man, of all years, play the AFC North. You don't want to do that. You got Lamar. Now you got Cleveland. If Deshaun plays, not great. Of course, the Bengals now are competent once again. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers with Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky, a team that the Panthers see later on. So week 9 at Cincinnati, 1 o'clock. And then week 10 at home for the only primetime game of the season. And I'm getting kind of sick of the whole only having a Thursday night primetime game. That is the 3rd year in a row. I think it was, 2019. It was week 2 against Tampa on Thursday night. That was the one primetime game. 2020, was it Atlanta? Yeah, I think it was Atlanta was a home game, primetime game last year. Same case. They had the prime game was a Thursday night at Houston. And now this year, the only primetime game Thursday night at home, week 10 against the Atlanta Falcons, 8:15 on Amazon Prime Video. Key thing is if you do live in the Charlotte area or in the Carolinas, you'll be able to watch it, I think, like on Fox or something like that, so don't have to worry about it. But you probably want to get Amazon Prime if you want to watch Thursday Night Football, since the NFL is holding all of us hostage to yet another streaming service. I have pretty much all of them at this point. I don't know how I'm ever going to afford all of this. I wish I could write it off. It's out of control. But the Falcons there week 10, play them in week 8, and then play him again in week 10. Marcus Mariota looking like going to be the starting quarterback. Desmond Ridder said the NFL all effed up by not taking him until the 3rd round. All 31 teams that bypassed Desmond Ridder apparently screwed up. Like the Kansas City Chiefs apparently made a mistake by not taking Desmond Ridder. Okay, cool, dude. Good for you. So that's week 10. Home Thursday night game against the Atlanta Falcons. Then week 11, God, this schedule, man. I mean, these teams, why of all years, at the Baltimore Ravens. Week 11, 1 o'clock game, M&T Bank Stadium up in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson still hasn't signed a new contract. It doesn't matter. Lamar's going to be there. When he was healthy last year, the Ravens were the top team in the AFC North. When he was not healthy, the Ravens, with Tyler Huntley, who did an admirable job, were not able to hold on and, of course, missed the playoffs. Calais Campbell's back for another year. They had the big trade on draft night with Arizona. It will be interesting to see what Baltimore looks like this year, but coached by John Harbaugh. They're always a tough out, and on the road, especially playing at Baltimore, that will be a tough game for the Carolina Panthers there in week 11 on Sunday, November 20th. Thanksgiving weekend, week 12, Sunday, November 27th, 1 o'clock game. They welcome home, in a way, Russell Wilson, who is now a Denver Bronco. They're not getting any breaks with this year. Like you got the Browns potentially with Deshaun in week 1. We get a break with Nuke Hopkins not playing for the Cardinals. Got the 49ers, got the Rams on the road, Tampa at home, which you always got to go on the road to face against Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and then off the Ravens, and then home against the Denver Broncos. That at least should be a game where maybe it's not going to be overrun by Broncos fans, depending on where the Carolina Panthers are during that point in time in the season. I do have a friend who's a Broncos fan who will certainly want to go to the game. And maybe NC State fans will masquerade as Bronco fans now. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully Deshaun will be suspended in week 1. We have no idea what the situation is going to be. But yeah, it's the NFL. The schedule's it's not going to be pretty. You got getting the AFC North and having to play the NFC West is not ideal for this team. Especially it's not ideal for Matt Rule if he wants to keep his job. Now we'll get into more of that detail here after we go over the rest of the schedule. But so week 12, 1 o'clock, home game against the Broncos, Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy got arrested today. I forgot the details, so I'm not going to talk about it. Got arrested, so innocent proven guilty, but we'll see what happens with that. Is Kingsley Hamler still there? My guy, Javonte Williams, the Broncos offense with new head coach Nathaniel Hackett should be loaded. Then they get a bye, another late bye like last season. I think last season was week 14. This season, no, they're not going 0-17, dude. This season, week 13 bye for the Carolina Panthers. And then on the road against the Seattle Seahawks in week 14 at Lumen Field. It'll be a 4:25 Eastern kickoff there. Of course, 11:25 local time in the beautiful Emerald City of Seattle. That might be a game I got to go to. I love Seattle, one of my favorite cities, probably my favorite city outside, of course, of my hometown of Charlotte. The Seahawks are continuing to tell everybody that they believe in Drew Lock. Maybe that's true. I just don't see how in the hell they actually think Drew Lock is going to be their franchise quarterback. But that's good for the Carolina Panthers because they need some sort of reprieve in the schedule. And Atlanta would be that on the road against New York, which it wasn't last year. But hey, fingers crossed this year things go better. And then on the road against Seattle, those are kind of games that you need to win to avoid a terrible season. Then they come back home week 15 against David Tepper's former team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sunday, December 18th, a 1 o'clock game. The Terrible Towels will be flying, of course, here in Charlotte, as they always are. It's an unavoidable thing to keep Steeler fans out of the stadium. I can't remember a time where I've gone to the Carolina Panthers game against Pittsburgh and it's not been overrun by Steelers fans. I can't. I remember there's one time, I can't remember what year, when I went to the game with my dad. Panthers were just getting mopped by Pittsburgh. We leave early. We hear a roar from the stadium. And I was thinking, oh, hey, man, the Panthers scored. My dad's like, no, that Pittsburgh scored. And what do you hear to intercom? Touchdown Steelers. So that will once again probably be the scene as the Pittsburgh Steelers likely to going to take over the stadium in week 15. One day, we'll keep the opposing fans out of the stadium. But I don't think that's going to happen with Pittsburgh, and it probably won't happen with the 49ers. So we go back to that playoff game. I think it was the 2013 season. The Panthers went 12-4. There's a ton of 49er fans in there. Those are just legacy franchises that are hard to keep out of your stadium, especially here in Charlotte. Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett got drafted 20th overall. Mitch Trubisky, the North Carolina alum, who played in Chicago, went to the playoffs for 2 years, or 2 out of the 4 years, 2 of the 4 years he was starting, and then was last year the backup to Josh Allen in Buffalo, getting a second chance. Will he be the starter at that point in the season? No idea. If Kenny Pickett is, again, like I was saying throughout the lead up to the draft, Kenny Pickett does not concern me at all. But Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin, never had a losing season. The dude is probably going to have a bust in Canton if he can win another Super Bowl. Probably going to get one anyways for just the consistency that he's had as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's done a marvelous job, and that should be obviously a physical, tough game. And that's, Matt Rule talks about the brand. Well, Pittsburgh Steelers football, what they've done, that's the brand that you're trying to strive for. And, of course, David Tepper, who promised us sustained success, which we are no closer to right now, it feels like, than we were last year. That's what he's trying to emulate here in Carolina. We'll see. Again, another respite in the schedule. Week 16 against the Detroit Lions, Sunday, December 24th, which, as y'all know, if you celebrate, is Christmas Eve. 1 o'clock game at home against Detroit, a team the Panthers have, thankfully, defeated pretty much every time they played them in recent time. Last time they played the Lions was in 2020, shut them out. PJ Walker was a starter. They went on the road in would have been maybe 18-1 against Detroit back when Matthew Stafford, of course, was the quarterback there in Detroit. So home game, week 16 against the Lions. I mean, you got to win that game. What else is there to say? It's the Lions. They're a dumpster fire. And Jared Goff is their starting quarterback. Come on, guys. Week 17 and 18, like last season, will end with 2 games against divisional opponents in Tampa Bay and in New Orleans, and both of them on the road. So we looked at last year where they had the Bucs twice. It was Buffalo, Tampa twice, and New Orleans. We looked at that final 4-game stretch and said the Panthers better damn well have gotten to 7 or 8 wins by that point, so they have some sort of leeway to get into the playoffs. That would be the same kind of thought for the final 2 weeks, as you got to beat Detroit, and you got to beat Pittsburgh really in the last 2 weeks, depending on, of course, where the season's at and where the team's at in regards to trying to get to the playoffs. As you have to go on the road against Tampa, a team that you've had really no success against the last 2 seasons that Matt Rule's been here, and on the road against New Orleans and what will always be a absolutely drunken crowd in New Orleans. There are like no liquor laws at all in the state of Louisiana. So that's a 1 o'clock game on New Year's Day against the Buccaneers. College football, unfortunately, I guess is going to get screwed over by the NFL that day. And then they will play the Saints TBD. That's what it says, TBD. So they'll play them, I guess, maybe on the 8th or maybe on the 7th, to be determined. So that is the schedule for the Carolina Panthers in 2022, at least the schedule dates. Week 1 at home against Cleveland. Week 2 on the road against the New York Football Giants. Week 3 at home against New Orleans. Week 4 at home against the Cardinals of Arizona, week 5, home against the 49ers, week 6 at the Rams, week 7, home against the Buccaneers, week 8 at Atlanta, week 9 at Cincinnati, week 10, home on Thursday Night Football against the Atlanta Falcons, week 11 on the road at the Baltimore Ravens, week 12, welcoming Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos, week 13 bye, week 14 in Seattle against the Seahawks, week 15 at home, sort of, against Pittsburgh Steelers, week 16, home against the Detroit Lions, and week 17 at Tampa Bay, and week 18 at New Orleans. That is the 2022 schedule for the Carolina Panthers. Now, what will their record be? How difficult is this schedule? Can Matt Rule save his job? We'll talk about that here in just a moment. But folks, Built Bar is by far the best tasting bar. And imagine these brand new Built Bars that just came out, birthday cake puffs. I told you all about the Built Bar puffs. Imagine dipping your finger into the plastic tube of a birthday cake frosting and then opening your eyes and realizing that it only has 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. That is what it's like to eat a birthday cake puff from Built Bar. I just received my birthday cake puffs today, and I have never had anything like this before. They're available right now, and I can promise you that they will not be here tomorrow. So go ahead and go to built.com right now and go check them out. All Built Bar puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. Go to built.com right now and you can get your birthday cake puffs right now. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your first order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Okay, go ahead and do that. All right, guys. So, the schedule, buddy. We knew about it. It's funny because I say this, we've known the teams, but I really have not paid attention. Like, I knew they always play the teams in the NFC South twice. I know that. I know who they're going to likely have to play as well based off of where they finished last year in the division. I just didn't kind of think about, oh, crap, they got to play the AFC. They got to play the NFC West, which was one of the best of, I think, 3 teams in the playoffs last year. 2 of them in the conference title game, best division in football. And then the other best division in football, the AFC North, with Pittsburgh, who's always competitive, Cincinnati, who's got their ish together and has Joe Burrow, Baltimore, who was a former MVP in Lamar Jackson and a Super Bowl winning head coach in John Harbaugh, and a always physical defense, the Ravens are. And then, of course, the Cleveland Browns, who won the sweepstakes for Deshaun Watson. Whether he plays week 1 or not, I don't know. But that's a tough draw. And that's the NFL. They don't have to travel to London. They don't have to go to Germany, which I think probably in 2023 they'll get an opportunity to go, which would be really cool. And hopefully the Panthers will be in a great state then. I don't know the record. I feel like for me, and as I'll go back and look at it, like the games that I would say, like you got to find a way. You got to find a way. Obviously, you got to find a way to beat Detroit. You got to find a way to go on the road and beat Seattle. You got to find a way to beat the Falcons twice. You need to find a way to win week 2 at the Giants. You got 5 of your first 8 games at home, 4 of your first 5 games at home. You got to have a positive home record. And the Panthers, when was the last time they haven't won a home game since week 2 of last season? Like Bank of America Stadium, as we've noticed, has become, they roll out the red carpet for other fan bases to come over and take over. That's what we see. Like the fan base has done that. The organization's done that by their ineptitude. And the fans have responded by saying, screw this. I'm going to go to the farmer's market or do anything else on my Sunday other than go attend this game, get gouged at the price by tickets, get gouged by parking, and get screwed as well with concessions, which what are we doing in this country with the concessions? Like I saw this Twitter account that does concessions prices in like London and all of Europe. We're in screwed in this country. Like this is absurd. But either way, I digress. It doesn't look great on paper, but we got to see the games. And it's really going to come down to how improved is the offensive line. Because we look at it, they look better on paper with Ike Ekwonu, hopefully there at left tackle, which his first test in the NFL is going to be against Myles Garrett. And if he win, I don't know, I'm going to be positive and confident. If he doesn't have success week 1 against Myles Garrett, well, there's a reason why Myles Garrett is getting paid the big bucks and has been a defensive player of the year. But Ike Ekwonu, welcome to the NFL moment. Myles Garrett, week 1. That could be tough, but we'll see. I'm sure he'll be just fine. Then there at left guard, Hopefully that would be Brady Christensen. Center would be Bradley Bozeman, fingers crossed. Right guard, Austin Corbett. Right tackle, Taylor Moton. On paper, that offensive line looks far better. They get an early test against the Cleveland Browns. They're week one, especially the rookie Ike Ekwonu. And then we'll see what the quarterback position looks like. Do you want to put out Matt Corral there week one against the Cleveland Browns defense and Myles Garrett potentially coming up against a rookie? I probably wouldn't want to do that. But hey, you know what? Maybe if he's the best guy's got to play, especially if the quarterback competition is close. But Sam Darnold, it's do or die time for him. He's going to get an opportunity. He has an opportunity right now to show that he is the guy to try and tell Carolina and show them over the next couple of weeks, don't go out there and get Baker. Don't go out there and get Nick Foles. Don't go out there and get Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm your guy. I can get it done. We're just fine. He's going to have to show that in this new Big McAdoo offense and OTA's mandatory minicamp and give this organization some sort of confidence heading into the rest of the offseason. But yeah, it's going to pray for Myles Garrett. Yeah, pray for Myles Garrett. I love that. I love the energy there. Pray for Myles Garrett. Have to go up against Ike Ekwonu in week one. But like, hey, that's why you got him 6th overall. To go up against those kind of guys. So we'll see right then and there whether you can do it. And if the offensive line, and here's the thing, like they got to stay healthy. The depth, though, you have a player in Pat Elflein who's just atrocious when it comes to playing starting left guard, but he looked pretty good at center last year considering. You can at least look at him as someone who can come in and start for you for a couple games, need be. Cam Irving, same case, terrible when he has to start a full game season. But he only has to start maybe 1 or 2 games. You can live with that. That's depth. Deontay Brown, don't know where he's at weight-wise, but that's someone who's going to continue to be groomed by James Campendow here, the new offensive line coach. Same thing with guys like Michael Jordan, who's going to be here again this season. I don't know. I imagine Dennis Daly is probably on the outs. We'll see how that plays out over the next couple of months here in Carolina, heading into training camp down there in Spartanburg. But it's the offensive line looks better on paper, and it looks like they have some depth. But it always comes down to injuries. And I said throughout the last season, yeah, they didn't look good anyways on paper, but still, when you have 14, 13, whatever many different combinations as it was last year, it's impossible to have success, no matter what the talent level is. And especially the talent levels as poor as it was last season, it's impossible to have success when you have that many injuries on the offensive line. Defensively, they're going to have to continue to grow. We got to see something from Derek Brown. It's do or die for him as well as the 5th-year option. Now, the teams have the flexibility. A lot of teams just said, screw it. We'll just let them go, and then we'll find out what we want to do here after their season if they can play in year 4 and play well enough. But that also can backfire for organizations, as we saw in the past. Same thing, CJ Henderson. We got to see him step up. J.C. Horn only played 2.5 games last year. What does it look like through a full 17-game schedule? Can he hold up? And this is not me saying like, hey, he's injury prone, but we haven't seen him play in the NFL at this point, unfortunately, for a majority of the season. So J.C. Horn, there's going to be a lot asked and expected of him coming out here in 2022 as a second-year player, but really a rookie because he didn't play as many snaps as we would have wanted and him needed to, and he needed to last year. So he's back. Dante Jackson, love Jeremy Chin, love the idea of Steve Wilkes and working with him. Thinks he can turn that guy into a perennial All-Pro. Please let that happen. How long Steve Wilkes can be here obviously is dependent upon, of course, who the head coach is and whether he gets retained by a new staff, if there is a new staff coming in 2023 or anytime in the future here in Carolina. So defensively, got to play as well as they played last year. Linebacker depth is a concern, but there are things that we'll continue to talk about throughout the rest of this month, next month, as OTAs, mandatory minicamp are going on, and of course later on in July when the Panthers get down to the campus of Wofford College there in Spartanburg, South Carolina for training camp 2022. And it won't be the last time they go to Wofford, considering that David Tepper said no more Rock Hill training facility in HQ as of right now, of course. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to everyone who watched the show here on YouTube. Again, make sure to subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss a single moment of the live shows as I've done in the past. Whenever anything crazy happened, like Deshaun saying, no, thank you, I'm not going to New Orleans or Atlanta, I'm going to Cleveland, we'll laugh at our division opponents. When breaking news and crazy stuff happens, I mean, it's not crazy, but when the NFL draft goes on, we'll go live and talk about it. When the NFL scheduled dates get released, we'll go live and talk about it. And of course, once the season gets going and after the Panthers play and after their press conferences, I will go live here on Sunday afternoon to get my initial reaction to the Carolina Panthers hopeful win or loss that Sunday afternoon and the occasional, well, just not occasional, one Thursday evening. this upcoming season here in 2022. So again, make sure to watch the show on YouTube and subscribe to the show on YouTube. If you ever miss anything live on YouTube, that's okay. I put the audio over on all the podcasting platforms out there, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, or Stitcher, or whatever one is out there. Don't know all the names of them, but they're out there. Whichever one you use, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to Locked On Panthers and all the podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network there. And follow me on Twitter at Julian Council, where every single Friday I answer weekly Friday mailbag questions. This is Friday's show, so I did it on Thursday this week. But next Friday will be a normal week Friday mailbag. So either at me at Julian Council, DM me at Julian Council, leave a comment on any of the YouTube shows from that week. In the meantime, take care, be safe, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Monday. Goodbye.